Every year, I like to make predictions about what I think is going to happen in the world of video games. And then the following year, I look back at those predictions, I see what I got right, what I got wrong, and then I make new predictions for the next year. So normally, I just do this on TikTok, but this year I figured, why not just make a YouTube video about it? So first, we're going to get into my last year predictions and reckon with those, and then I'll make my predictions for 2026. And I'll leave timestamps in case you just want to skip to those predictions, but I think it's a lot of fun to look back and see just how right or wrong I was. Now, last year, I made 3 videos containing 6 predictions each, so we're going to start the first one now.
Number 1, GTA 6 gets delayed to 2026. Look, I'm not saying I want this to happen, but I'm just looking at history here. Rockstar has a track record of delaying some of its biggest games. I know Take-Two said this is not going to happen, but look, they have to say that. They're not going to tell their investors, yeah, we definitely think this is getting delayed. They've got to be optimistic. But ultimately, this is just too big of a game to have a botched launch. If it needs time, they're going to give it time.
Could not have been more correct about that. I remember a lot of people talking about like it couldn't get delayed because they had told investors in like a shareholder meeting that it was not getting delayed. They're always going to say that. They lie in those all the time to look good on paper. I was 100% sure it was getting delayed. Will it get delayed again this year, though? That I'll talk about in the prediction section.
Prediction 1.5. If GTA 6 does come out this year, it will not win GOTY at the Game Awards. I don't think that this is as sure thing of a lock for GOTY as a lot of people think it is. It's just such a big game. There's so many things that could go wrong, and there's so many expectations on this that I feel like there's just going to be something there that disappoints a lot of people and just keeps it out of winning GOTY. And then there's probably going to be a smaller, more contained game that's just universally agreed upon to be perfect from top to bottom, and that's just going to win.
So I was wrong in my speculation that it was going to be something like Metroid Prime, but it did end up being a smaller game that people didn't really see coming. So I'll take a point here too, even though obviously GTA 6 wasn't even in the conversation.
Prediction number 2. When the next Nintendo platform comes out, it has universally agreed upon the best launch lineup in video game history. I think the only reason that we haven't heard about the next Nintendo system in any official capacity is because they are waiting until their launch library is locked in and it is excellent before they give the presentation, reveal the launch date, and all that stuff. Software obviously gets delayed all the time, and I think they just want to make sure that their launch library is set in stone before they give a release date for the console, because delaying the release date of your console is a lot bigger deal than delaying the release date of like a Mario game.
All right, so obviously very wrong here. The launch lineup was very thin. If you want to expand this to the launch window lineup, I don't think they had a bad launch window lineup, but best of all time, definitely not something that is universally agreed upon. So I got that wrong there. I also continued to make a few more predictions that were also not right.
If I wanted to add a parlay to this bet and call the launch lineup, I would say next big mainline Mario game, Metroid Prime 4, a new Pokemon game, not necessarily like the new mainline one, but maybe a new like Legends one, but a new Pokemon something. F-Zero will make its triumphant return, a massive third-party offering, not necessarily anything new, but pretty much any third-party game that released on the PS4, Xbox One is going to be a launch title on the Switch. Like, I think they're going to make a big deal about Elden Ring finally being on the Nintendo platform. I think there's going to be a huge update for a lot of the Switch games, so like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, huge texture patch, upgrade, runs better, looks better, all that stuff. And also, I think an actual new Mario Kart, because they basically have been riding off of like 8 Deluxe for a long time. This kind of conflicts with F-Zero, but I don't know. Both of them are my predictions.
A lot wrong there. No new Mario game. Again, we're going to have to talk about launch window because the launch lineup was pretty much just Mario Kart, which I did nail. No F-Zero anywhere in sight there. They did do a lot of updates to their original Switch titles, and they did have a big emphasis on third-party games. But overall, there's a lot of misses here too.
Prediction number 3, a new Mega Man game announced. Prediction number 4, a new Dino Crisis game announced.
All right, yes to Mega Man, even though that was not the Mega Man game I thought we were getting. I really thought they were going to go more ambitious with this Mega Man and have it kind of almost be like a Ratchet and Clank kind of thing, where it's more of a 3D adventure platformer, but I still got it right. No Dino Crisis anywhere in sight. At this point, I'm just coping.
Prediction number 5, Resident Evil is announced, released, and is a GOTY nominee at the Game Awards.
Okay, so I lost this because I made it really hard on myself, but the reason I made it so hard on myself is because just assuming that a Resident Evil 9 was going to get announced last year was too easy of a prediction. Like, that pretty obviously was going to happen, and so I figured it would be more interesting if I had a couple parlays to that, which obviously didn't get right, but I do still think it will be nominated for GOTYs, just not in 2025. 2026, we're looking at you.
Prediction number 6 is Metal Gear Solid Delta is a disappointment, scoring below an 85 on Metacritic, and it's just universally agreed upon that they didn't do enough. I think it's going to be compared directly to Silent Hill 2, and a lot of people are going to say that they should have been more daring with it, like with Silent Hill 2. Now, I do think that if Silent Hill 2 had not been a success, that would not be the narrative. I think people would praise it for playing it really safe, but seeing how we just saw Silent Hill 2 both be faithful to the original and and do something new at the same time, I think that's going to hurt the perception of Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is playing it way too safe.
Okay, so the Metacritic score is right at an 85, and I did say below 85, so I'm going to count this as a wrong. But the fact that I was so close is why I made this bet in the first place. Like, Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of the greatest games of all time. A remake to one of the greatest games of all time should easily clear the 90s, no problem. Because this ended up being way more of a remaster than a remake. Like, a remake should enhance the original experience. They were confined to so many limitations with the PS2, and it wasn't even necessarily the original vision that Kojima wanted. Just to not expand on any of those mechanics whatsoever and get it closer to the original vision with the power that you have now with modern consoles, I think is a shame. Whether or not you agree with that, I think the Metacritic being below a 90 does kind of give credence to that point, but regardless, I got this wrong.
Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to end up being a surprising success. I don't think it's going to necessarily save Ubisoft or anything, but I do think it's going to postpone their demise. I think it's both going to review pretty well, scoring above an 85 on Metacritic, and also sell pretty decent. Expect headlines like, is Ubisoft back? Or things like, Assassin's Creed Shadows remind us why we used to love Ubisoft. Stuff like that.
Okay, so it did not score above an 85 on Metacritic, so I'm going to take this as a wrong here. I don't think the game was a failure, but I don't think we could call it a surprising success either, so I will take the L here.
My second prediction is a bit abstract, but stay with me. Nintendo will not know how to market Luigi. If this prediction is true, it'll be very obvious by the end of the year, and if we're not too sure, then I got it wrong. But given recent events, I think Nintendo's going to go one of two ways. They're either not going to mention Luigi this entire year, despite the fact that I do think there will be a new Mario game this year, and he will be in it. He will never be mentioned and not be shown in any trailers. Or they will try to market Luigi, go out of their way to separate him from like the headlines that are not related to him in any way, but you know what I mean. And instead it'll backfire and get memed to no end, and the Luigi stuff is going to become an even bigger problem for them. One of those two things.
So if I even have to explain where my headspace was at, I got it wrong. I absolutely got this wrong. At the time, we were coming fresh off the news of Luigi Mangione, and it sort of seemed like maybe Luigi masks would turn into the new Guy Fawkes mask and be synonymous with protest or revolution. That didn't happen whatsoever. I think we kind of just not really forgot, but definitely moved on from Luigi being a kind of like symbol in a way that seemed like he was going to be right afterwards. So Nintendo didn't really have to adjust their marketing around Luigi. Also, there was no Mario game, so there was no Luigi marketing to adjust in the first place.
Prediction number 3, Avowed gets announced and released for the PS5 and ends up selling better on the PS5 than it did on the Xbox.
So I missed this by just a little bit. It did not happen in 2025. Recently, it just got announced that Avowed is finally coming to PS5, but didn't happen last year, so I got this wrong. I do still think it will end up selling better, but it doesn't matter.
Prediction number 4, I think the next Blue Point game is the God of War 1 remake, or if they're remaking more of them, it's the God of War remakes. And I think it's probably part of a larger collaboration with Sony Santa Monica to not only help make assets for the next God of War game, but also help make assets for their new IP. Because if you're doing a remake for God of War 1, there's probably a lot of assets that you can also use for their other projects. And considering Sony Santa Monica is working on 2 major games right now, I definitely think that they probably could use the extra asset help.
For the sake of this prediction, I got it wrong because it didn't happen in 2025. Blue Point was working on something God of War related. It was a multiplayer thing, but I don't believe that was the only thing that they were working on. I think that multiplayer mode was part of a larger God of War 1 remake project, and they're just cutting the multiplayer, and they're just going to do a God of War 1 remake. I do think now they'll probably remake 2 and package them together as one thing. So I don't think I'll be wrong in the long run, but since this did not get confirmed in 2025, it's a loss.
Prediction number 5, I think the new Uncharted game will be officially announced this year.
All right, so loss. There was no Uncharted game announced this year. I still think this is happening, but I'm going to be honest, I'm starting to lose faith. I think it's being made by a second team that's being formed at Sony San Diego. I don't think it's being made by Naughty Dog, but not even a whisper of this.
And prediction number 6, I think the following Xbox games will be released on the PlayStation 5. Starfield, Hellblade 2, Avowed, and South of Midnight. I think the new Fable game will be announced for PS5, but it will not be released this year. It'll be released next year.
No Starfield. Yes, South of Midnight got announced, so I'll take that one, but it didn't get released. Avowed missed the announcement date entirely, and Hellblade did actually come over. So a bit of a mixed bag there. I'm not quite sure what's taking Starfield so long. The Fable one I got wrong, but funny enough, we just had a Microsoft developer direct where they announced Fable is coming day and day to PS5. So right, but too early.
Prediction number 1, a first-party Xbox game will be nominated at the Game Awards for Game of the Year. The reason this is significant is because I don't think it's happened yet in the 10-year history of the Game Awards, and if it has, it's not a very common occurrence. Personally, I think it's going to be the new Fable game, but Doom the Dark Ages also has a pretty good shot, considering that the last 2 Doom games were nominated for Game of the Year in the years they came out.
Wrong. Again, Fable I was sure was coming out last year, then it got delayed. I still think Fable is GOTY material, but Doom, it was just a hard year. Doom just couldn't make it in. This was a really stacked past years, but wrong.
Prediction number 2, I think the next main game from Software is going to be announced this year. If I had to throw a parlay on this just to make it a little bit harder, I think it's going to be Sekiro 2.
Forget the parlay. I'm just going to take the win. I need the win. I'm going to take it. Dustblood's got announced. It is, according to them, their next main big game that they're working on. So I'm going to take it.
Prediction number 3, Hollow Knight Silksong still does not come out this year. I'm so sorry.
I am thrilled to be wrong about that one. Happy to be wrong. Silksong did come out and it was nominated for GOTY. I've never been more excited to be wrong.
Prediction number 4, at least 2 of the following 5 games are announced and released this year. The new IP from Sony Santa Monica, the next game from Sony Bend, the next game from Bluepoint, the next game from Housemarque, Wolverine from Insomniac. That one's already announced, but released this year. At least 2 of those 5.
That was very rough. Not only did the Sony Bend and the Bluepoint game get canceled, we heard nothing about Sony Santa Monica's new IP. We did finally see more about Wolverine, but it did not come out last year. Just rough all the way around for that bet.
Prediction number 5, Astrobot's influence will be felt. Either there will be a slew of indie 3D platformers that are getting a lot of attention, or one of the big publishers is going to announce a 3D platformer and make a really big deal about it, like in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise. If I had to guess who, I would say Ubisoft is going to revive Rayman as a 3D platformer and make a real big deal about it.
No, there was no tangible impact to Astrobot's win in 2025. Maybe in the future we will see the games inspired by Astrobot's win, but there was no big third-party publisher jumping to announce a platformer after Astrobot won, so I gotta take her wrong on that.
And number 6, I think a game is going to have a massive AI art controversy. I know Call of Duty already had a little bit of a controversy, but I think a massive one where like it dominates the conversation for a while and is a really big deal.
Okay, count it. There were 2 relatively big AI art controversies right at the end of the year, with Larian using AI for concept art and then Expedition 33 for having used AI in early stages of production. That was not really what I was thinking about when I had this prediction in mind, but they do count as controversies that did kind of dominate the conversation for a little while, at least in terms of how quickly news moves these days. So I'm going to take it. Overall, not a great correct to incorrect ratio, but also I want to note that I do make harder predictions on purpose because it's no fun to just make obvious predictions. Like, these kind of have to have a little bit of stakes to them, you know what I mean? And with that mindset in mind, let's get into our 2026 video game predictions. So, quick editor's note, I realized that this video is going up the last day of January, so the year is already 1/12 finished, but I wrote all these predictions down at the very beginning of the month, and then I shot this video like 2 weeks ago, and I just haven't had a chance to get this edited until now. So regardless, I don't think it's affected any of them. Like, none of the predictions would have come to fruition yet anyway, so it doesn't really compromise the integrity of these predictions or anything, but I just wanted to clarify that because this is kind of going up pretty late for predictions for 2026. Prediction number 1, Kingdom Hearts 4 releases this year. I think that they've just been waiting to talk about this until they have a date like absolutely locked in so they can have a relatively short reintroduction to release marketing pipeline. But I'm very confident about this. A lot of people think that Final Fantasy VII Part 3 is going to come out first. Just given the track record of like remake Final Fantasy 16, remake Part 2, something else, and then remake Part 3, is this the time that makes the most amount of sense to me? So we'll see. Bonus prediction on this, that if there is a Marvel world, it's going to be Marvel Comics. Like, you're going to go inside a comic book, not MCU stuff. I think the way they're going to do it is you'll find a comic book in Quadratum, you'll take it to like a comic shop, and then you'll be able to go inside the pages of it, kind of like you do with Winnie the Pooh. But yeah, so if they do Marvel Comics, and it's going to look like a Gold Age or Silver Age comic, not MCU stuff. Prediction number 2, Persona 6 is announced this year with a pretty vague teaser trailer that doesn't really show anything because there's not really anything done on the game yet. It started production after Metaphor Refantasio came out, but because it's a pretty big anniversary this year for the franchise, they just want to show something. Also, bonus points if the logo uses a clock in any way, like uses the 6 as a clock. I don't know, I got a weird feeling about this one. Crazy extra points if that turns out to be correct. Prediction number 3, GTA 6 does not get delayed. I don't think it's getting delayed out of 2026. I don't think it's getting delayed at all, but if it gets delayed, even a little bit. It's gonna be like a week or something. It is coming out this year. Prediction number 4, next gen systems are not slated for 2027. All signs point to them coming out in 2028 or beyond. Prediction number 5, Sekiro 2 is announced this year. It is the next big Miyazaki game after the Dustbloods. Prediction number 6, the Halo remake sells better on PlayStation than it does on Xbox, further cementing their pivot to just going full multi-platform. Prediction number 7, there's a new Nier game announced. It is so overdue. It's so time. It's been a long time since Nier Automata. I know Yutaro has been busy with other smaller things, but he is long overdue to have another big game come out, and it doesn't make any sense not to follow up the success of Nier Automata. Prediction number 8, Resident Evil 9 ends up being the highest rated Resident Evil game on Metacritic. Now, look, when I first wrote this prediction down, I did not know that the original Resident Evil 4 was sitting at a 96. That is a hard hurdle to clear. If it ties at 96, I'm still taking this as a win because it is the highest rated one. It's just tied with another one for the highest rating. But 96 or above, let's go. Like I said before, there is no fun in making an easy prediction. Sometimes you just gotta dig deep and you gotta like really go for it. And so I really believe in Resident Evil 9. It has all the material it needs to be the best Resident Evil game of all time. It looks like it's combining everything that people love about every era pretty much of Resident Evil. If you like the first person Resident Evils, there's something for you. If you like horror Resident Evil, you got something for you. If you like the third person Resident Evil 4 action style Resident Evil, you got something for you. If you want a new character, you got something for you. If you want the old character, you got something for you. This could be the greatest Resident Evil of all time. Prediction number 9, I think the sentiment around Marathon is going to flip by the end of the year. I do think it's going to come out to a relatively rough launch, maybe some low concurrent player numbers, and maybe it'll feel a little feature incomplete. A lot of Bungie stuff typically does at the beginning not have great launches, but then by the end of the year, after a couple updates and some word of mouth spreading, I think people are going to really turn around on it, and people are going to have a generally positive outlook on Marathon. Obviously, you're always going to have people being negative online, but I think overall, the sentiment is going to have really flipped 180 on how people feel about that game. Prediction number 10, there is a new Dino Crisis this year. I'm not giving up on this. I'm making this prediction every year until it comes true. Prediction number 11, the Max Payne remakes finally get a trailer and are releasing next year. Prediction number 12, the God of War 1 remake is real and is releasing this year. I still believe this is what Bluepoint has been working on in conjunction to that multiplayer game that got canceled. Prediction number 13, the next Star Wars Jedi game gets announced and the reveal trailer features an unexpected cameo. This is another example where just making the prediction is going to get announced is a little too easy. It's not that fun of a prediction. I'm almost 90% sure that's going to happen, so I need to add something extra to it. Prediction number 14, the Cory Barlog Sony Santa Monica game is revealed, and it is a reimagining of an existing PlayStation IP from the PS1 generation. So I don't think it's going to be a new IP. I think he's going to be reinventing an old IP, specifically something from the PS1 gen. If all that ends up happening, I'm taking the point, but just as a bonus prediction on top of that, I'm thinking like a JRPG era PlayStation game, something in that realm that he's reimagining. It's not exactly a JRPG if a Western studio is doing it, but Expedition 33 already showed us that you don't have to be a Japanese studio to make a JRPG, and since PlayStation doesn't have a JRPG studio in Japan right now to continue any of these franchises, why not let Cory Barlog take a stab at it? You know what I mean? In prediction number 15, the new Uncharted game is announced. It's real. So there's been a lot of smoke around Sony San Diego expanding and building out a second team and taking a lot of people from Naughty Dog, a lot of ex-Naughty Dog people going to Sony San Diego to work on the next iteration of an existing PlayStation franchise. There's just so much smoke around this being a new Uncharted game and PlayStation finding a way to keep that franchise going and still letting Naughty Dog move on. I think this was real at one point. Whether or not it got canceled, I'm starting to wonder about now. Like, possibly it got canceled, but I do 100% believe it was in development at one point, and I've got to keep hope alive. Uncharted, whatever the next one is, Sony San Diego. Now, what I'd also like to do is try and predict what the 6 nominees at the Game Awards are going to be for Game of the Year. Obviously, there's not really anything to go off for this. It's pretty much just predictions going off of vibes and a little bit of looking at history, but it's fun to see how close we'll actually get and what ones I was way off on. Starting with the one I'm 100% certain of is GTA 6. Provided this doesn't get delayed, this is 100% a guarantee. The only other thing that might stop it is if the release date is past where the cutoff is, it can still be nominated as long as it's available for journalists and media outlets to play prior to a certain date. And I do think that people are going to have a pretty lengthy review window here to like get the game and fully play it to get the reviews out on launch day. So I think it will be fine for that, but that's the only caveat that might stop this. For my second slot, I have Resident Evil 9. I'm also pretty much 100% sure about this one too. Past Resident Evil games have traditionally been nominated, and I do think, again, this is going to be the best one they've ever done. I think this is an easy lock as well. My third slot I'm also pretty confident in, which is Control Resident. Remedy games have consistently gotten better over time, and the last few have been nominated for Game of the Year. I really think that there's no reason to doubt this game whatsoever, so that's number 3. Now, the last 3 slots I'm way less sure about, so we're just going purely off of vibes here and less off of history. But at number 4, I've got Fable. I thought this before the recent gameplay reveal at the Xbox Developer Direct. I just had a weird feeling about this game since last year that it was going to be spectacular, and I have nothing to base it off of because I've never even played a Fable game before, so I don't know why. I just, new developer, they were taking a lot of time with it. Playground Games, while they haven't done anything similar to Fable before, are a really solid developer. I just had a weird feeling about this, and then after seeing the gameplay reveal, I'm even more sure that this is absolutely GOTY material. For the 5th slot, I've got Wolverine. Now, this is the one I'm the least sure about on this list so far. This game is going to have to be better than pretty much anything Insomniac has made before. It's going to have to be better than Spider-Man 1 or Spider-Man 2. Not that those are bad games, but I don't think Spider-Man 2 especially would be nominated in 2026 if it came out in 2026. It's a good game. It's just the competition is like really way up there now. So Wolverine's going to have to be exceptional, but I do think they have it in them. I really do think this has potential to be arguably one of Insomniac's best games ever. And then for the final 6th slot, I've got Judas. Now, this game might not come out this year. I'm pretty sure that it will because it was supposed to come out last year, and I just can't see it getting delayed again. It's been in development for so long. But Ken Levine has never missed. This game might not be on a lot of people's radars, but I do absolutely think that if it does come out this year, it will be one of the best games of the year. And those are all of my 2026 video game predictions. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments below. Let me know which of my predictions you think are going to be right or going to be wrong, and just what you think we should expect out of 2026. And I'll see you back here in a year to see how right we are.